The quantum arrays at SETI's Mauna Kea facility had been operating for 37 years without detecting anything more interesting than the usual cosmic background radiation. Dr. Sarah Chen had spent 12 of those years monitoring the arrays, publishing papers about signal processing algorithms that gathered dust in academic journals. But on a humid Hawaiian night in 2157, everything changed. At first, she thought the signal was an equipment malfunction. The quantum detection grid was lighting up in patterns she'd never seen before, creating interference waves that shouldn't have been possible according to standard physics models. Sarah's fingers flew across her haptic interface, running diagnostic after diagnostic. "Control, are you seeing this?" She broadcast to the facility's main operations center. "Grid 7 is picking up something that's..." She paused, double-checking her readings. "That's propagating faster than light." "Confirmed," came the clipped response from Control. "Similar readings on grids 3 and 5. Director Matthews is being notified." Sarah barely registered the response. The signal was intensifying, and now she could see clear patterns emerging in the quantum fluctuations. They weren't random. They carried information, encoded in a way that suggested whoever sent them had an advanced understanding of quantum mechanics that went far beyond humanity's current knowledge. Within an hour, the facility was buzzing with activity. Scientists who had been asleep in their quarters were now crowded around monitoring stations, arguing about theories and possibilities. Director Matthews arrived looking like he'd dressed in a hurry, his silver hair disheveled. "Dr. Chen," he called out, making his way to her station. "Talk to me. What are we looking at?" Sarah pulled up a holographic representation of the signal pattern. "It's definitely artificial, sir. The quantum entanglement patterns are too precise to be natural. We're seeing evidence of technology that can manipulate quantum states across vast distances. But here's the strange part. The signal isn't just carrying data. It's changing the local quantum field." As if to emphasize her point, the main display suddenly flickered. The air in the center of the room began to shimmer, and for a moment, everyone fell silent. A shape was forming in the air, a three-dimensional projection composed of quantum-entangled particles. The projection stabilized into a clear image, a star system unlike anything in human records. 3 suns of different sizes orbited each other in a complex dance, while dozens of planets traced intricate paths through the gravitational maze. But something was wrong. A massive distortion was visible at the edge of the system, warping space itself like a cosmic maelstrom. Then came the voice. It emerged from the quantum fluctuations themselves, translated somehow into audible sound through principles that defied current human understanding of physics. "To any species capable of detecting this message, we are the Nexarians. Our civilization spans 27 worlds in the Trilaxis system. We have achieved what many would consider impossible: stable habitation in a trinary star system. But now we face extinction." The projection shifted, showing the distortion in greater detail. "A gravitational anomaly of unprecedented scale has formed at the edge of our system. Our models suggest it was caused by the interaction of dark matter with our star's unique gravitational field. The anomaly is growing exponentially. In approximately 3 Earth months, it will begin consuming our outer worlds. Within 6 months, our entire civilization will be drawn into a gravitational well from which nothing can escape." Director Matthews leaned forward, his face illuminated by the alien projection. "They found us through quantum entanglement. They must have been broadcasting this across the galaxy, hoping someone would be advanced enough to detect it. We have tried everything within our considerable technological capabilities," the Nexarian message continued. "But the forces involved exceed even our most advanced gravitational control systems. We broadcast this message not just as a cry for help, but as a warning. The anomaly's effects appear to be spreading through quantum channels. Given enough time, it could threaten other star systems." Sarah's hands were shaking as she typed commands into her console, recording every bit of data she could. "Sir, they're including technical specifications, engineering diagrams, physics equations, Astronomical data. They're giving us everything they know about the anomaly. The voice spoke again, with what seemed like desperation despite its artificial nature. If your civilization has developed technologies or theoretical frameworks we have not discovered, if you have approached physics from a different perspective that might offer solutions we cannot see, we implore you to help. The lives of 12 billion sentient beings hang in the balance. The projection showed one final image. A massive city suspended in space, its architecture both beautiful and alien, with 3 suns casting multiple shadows across its gleaming surfaces. Then the quantum projection collapsed, though the signal continued to pulse through their detectors. Director Matthews straightened up, his face set with determination. Dr. Chen, I need you to compile everything we've received and prepare for an emergency conference. I'm going to contact the Global Science Council. He paused, looking at the space where the projection had been. Humanity just became part of something much bigger than ourselves. The question is, can we rise to the challenge? Sarah looked at the equations streaming across her screen. The physics involved was beyond anything humanity had achieved, but there was something about the fundamental principles that tickled her mind. The Nexarians had approached the problem from their own technological perspective, but sometimes, she knew, the greatest breakthroughs came from seeing things differently. Perhaps humanity's relative technological simplicity would be an advantage, allowing them to see solutions that a more advanced civilization might overlook. The next few hours would determine whether humanity's first contact with an alien civilization would be marked by triumph or tragedy. Either way, there would be no going back to the way things were before this night. The Global Science Council chamber in Geneva had never been so crowded. 3 days after the Nexarian signal's detection, representatives from every major research institution on Earth and Mars sat shoulder to shoulder in the tiered seating. The tension in the room was palpable as Dr. Sarah Chen stood at the podium, concluding her presentation. The Nexarians' gravitational control technology is centuries ahead of ours, she said, gesturing to the holographic display showing their technical specifications. Yet they can't solve this. Their approaches all focus on directly counteracting the anomaly's gravitational force. But what if that's the wrong approach entirely? Dr. Yuki Tanaka, the renowned quantum physicist from Tokyo University, leaned forward. You're suggesting something specific, Dr. Chen. What are you seeing that the rest of us haven't? Sarah took a deep breath. The Nexarians understand gravity as a force to be controlled and redirected. But our recent work with quantum entanglement suggests something different. That gravity might be an emergent property of quantum interactions at a deeper level. What if, instead of fighting the anomaly's gravitational effects, we could alter its quantum structure? The chamber erupted in murmurs. Dr. Marcus Webb, head of the European Quantum Research Initiative, stood up. That's a fascinating theoretical approach, but we're talking about affecting quantum states across astronomical distances. We barely understand how the Nexarians' communication system works, let alone how to manipulate quantum fields at that scale. Actually, a new voice cut through the discussion. Dr. Imani Okoro, the lead researcher at the African Space Agency's Quantum Propulsion Laboratory, had been quiet until now. She walked to the front of the chamber, her expression intense. We might have something. She pulled up her own data display, showing schematics for an experimental engine design. We've been developing what we call a quantum resonance drive. Instead of pushing against normal spacetime, it creates a cascade of quantum fluctuations that can propagate faster than light. It's highly experimental, and we've only tested it at microscopic scales, but the principles align perfectly with Dr. Chen's theory. The next few hours dissolved into intense technical discussions. As night fell over Geneva, a plan began to take shape, one that would push human technology far beyond its intended limits. Admiral Helena Santos of the United Earth Fleet sat in her office aboard the orbital command station, reading the proposal for the 3rd time. The plan was audacious, borderline insane, but she couldn't see any better options. She opened a comm channel to the fleet's chief engineer. Commander Rodriguez, I need your honest assessment. Can we modify our ship's quantum resonance shields to generate the kind of field Dr. Chen and Dr. Okoro are proposing? Rodriguez's holographic projection looked exhausted. He'd probably been running simulations nonstop since receiving the specifications. The modifications would put immense stress on our power systems. We'd be lucky if the ships didn't tear themselves apart. But he paused, running a hand through his graying hair. The math checks out. If everything works perfectly, we could theoretically create a quantum dampening field large enough to affect the anomaly structure. How many ships would we need? At least 7, working in perfect synchronization. And Admiral, we'd have to position them inside the anomaly's effective range. If anything goes wrong, Santos nodded grimly. They'd be pulled in with no hope of escape. I know. She stood up, walking to the window that overlooked Earth below. Start the modifications on the UES Prometheus, Challenger, Gagarin, and 4 other ships of your choosing. We'll need our best crews for this. The next 2 weeks were a blur of activity. While engineers worked around the clock to modify the ships, Dr. Chen and Dr. Okoro led a team integrating their quantum field theories with the Nexarians' gravitational data. The resulting hybrid technology was unlike anything humanity had created before. Elegant in its theoretical simplicity, but nightmarishly complex in its implementation. Captain Maya Patel stood in the Prometheus's cargo bay, watching as crews installed the massive quantum field generators that would either save an alien civilization or destroy her ship and crew. At 43, she had commanded the Prometheus for 6 years, but nothing in her experience had prepared her for this mission. Having second thoughts, a voice asked behind her. She turned to see Dr. Chen, who had been assigned as the mission's chief scientist. Not about going, Paddle replied. But I keep wondering, why us? The Nexarians must have contacted hundreds of civilizations. Why did they share their technical data so freely with a species they know nothing about? Sarah smiled slightly. Maybe because they understand something important about survival. Sometimes the best solutions come from those who see things with fresh eyes, who haven't been constrained by centuries of technological development in a particular direction. Our primitive approach to quantum mechanics might be exactly what they need. An alarm chimed throughout the ship. Another systems test was about to begin. Captain Patel straightened her uniform. Well, Dr. Chen, let's hope you're right. Because in 72 hours, we're going to put that theory to the ultimate test. As she walked to the bridge, Paddle reflected on the magnitude of what they were attempting. 7 ships, crewed by volunteers who knew the risks, would attempt to save a civilization of 12 billion souls using technology that barely existed 2 weeks ago. It was exactly the kind of impossible challenge that humanity had always risen to meet. The Prometheus's quantum drive hummed to life, its new modifications creating harmonics that seemed to vibrate through reality itself. In orbit, the other 6 ships of the rescue fleet were powering up their own systems. Humanity's most ambitious mission was about to begin, and the fate of 2 civilizations hung in the balance. The UES Prometheus shuddered as its modified quantum drive engaged, creating ripples in space-time that sensors were never designed to measure. On the bridge, Captain Patel gripped her command chair as reality itself seemed to flex around them. All ships reporting quantum field synchronization. Lieutenant Zhao announced from the operations console. Prometheus is leading the formation. Challenger and Gagarin are holding steady on our flanks. Dr. Chen stood at her science station, her eyes fixed on the quantum field readings. The 7 ships had arranged themselves in a precise geometric pattern, a 3-dimensional Star of David with the Prometheus at its center. The pattern wasn't chosen for aesthetics. It was the only configuration their simulation showed could maintain a stable quantum resonance field during faster-than-light travel. Beginning quantum cascade, Commander Rodriguez reported from engineering. Field strength at 30% and climbing. We're seeing some unusual fluctuations in the ship's structural integrity field, but nothing outside predicted parameters. The view through the main viewport had become strange, reality taking on an oily sheen as quantum effects began to dominate normal spacetime. The stars ahead seemed to smear like wet paint, their light bent by forces that human science was only beginning to understand. Field strength at 60%, Rodriguez called out. All ships maintaining formation. Quantum resonances. Wait. There was sudden tension in his voice. We're getting feedback loops in the field. The cascade is becoming self-reinforcing. Before anyone could respond, a blinding light filled the bridge. When it cleared, the viewport showed something impossible. They were no longer in normal space. The ships were flying through what looked like a tunnel of pure mathematics, geometric patterns shifting and flowing around them in 4, 5, perhaps infinite dimensions. Status report, Patil demanded, her voice steady despite the unprecedented situation. All ships are intact, Zhao reported, though his voice shook slightly. But our position, Captain, according to our navigation systems, we're everywhere and nowhere at once. It's like we've fallen through a crack in spacetime. Dr. Chen's fingers flew across her console. This wasn't in our simulations, but it makes a certain kind of sense. The quantum cascade has created a kind of bubble in reality. We're traveling through the quantum substrate that underlies normal space. Can we maintain control? Patil asked. I think so, but we need to modify our approach. The quantum field is more responsive than we anticipated. Lieutenant Zhao, tell all ships to reduce field strength to 40%. We need to surf these quantum currents, not fight them. The next several hours were a masterclass in adaptation and human intuition. The crew learned to read the patterns in the quantum tunnel, adjusting their field strength and formation to ride the currents of probability like sailors tacking into the wind. But 18 hours into the journey, alarms blared across the fleet. Multiple quantum surges detected, Zhao shouted. Something's disrupting the field. Through the viewport, they could see dark shapes moving through the quantum tunnel, regions where mathematics itself seemed to break down. One of these quantum voids passed through the UES Gagarin, and the ship's lights flickered ominously. Gagarin reporting critical power fluctuations, Zhao announced. Their quantum field is destabilizing. If they lose containment, pattern the void. Dr. Chen interrupted, her eyes locked on her readings. These aren't random anomalies. They're following mathematical sequences. If we can predict their movements. Captain Patil understood immediately. Tactical, run those void patterns through our combat prediction algorithms. Plot us a course through this quantum minefield. The next few minutes were tense as the fleet wove through the quantum voids, their formation flexing and reshaping while maintaining the crucial resonance pattern. The Gagarin's engineers managed to stabilize their quantum field just in time to slip past a massive void that could have torn the ship apart. Look, Dr. Chen called out suddenly. The quantum tunnel ahead was changing, the mathematical patterns shifting into recognizable forms. I'm seeing elements of Nexarian quantum coding. We must be approaching their signal's origin point. The tunnel's walls began to thin, reality becoming more substantial around them. With a final flash of quantum energy, the fleet emerged into normal space and found themselves facing a sight that left even the most seasoned crew members speechless. 3 suns hung in space before them, their light painting the ships in shifting colors. Dozens of planets traced complex orbits through the system, many supporting massive structures that defied human engineering understanding. But dominating the view was the gravitational anomaly, a writhing mass of distorted space that seemed to devour light itself. Signal from the Nexarians, Zhao reported, his voice barely a whisper. They're asking who we are. Captain Patil stood, straightening her uniform. Here they were, humanity's representatives, arriving in their crude ships to attempt what an advanced civilization could not. The next few hours would determine whether their desperate gambit would succeed or fail catastrophically. Tell them, she said, that we're from Earth, and we're here to help. The Nexarian response was immediate. A massive vessel, more like a mobile city than a ship, approached the human fleet. Its surface rippled with quantum energy patterns similar to those they'd encountered during their journey. Through their newly established quantum communication link, the Nexarians shared their surprise and confusion. You traversed quantum space. The alien transmission carried undertones of disbelief. Our models suggested this would be impossible for a civilization at your technological level. Impossible is something of a specialty for us. Captain Puddle responded, then quickly shifted to business. We've developed a theoretical solution to your gravitational anomaly, but we'll need your help to implement it. The next hour was spent in rapid exchange of information. The Nexarians' advanced sensors confirmed what their own instruments were telling them. The anomaly had grown significantly since their distress call. Its event horizon now encompassed the orbit of their outermost colony world. Dr. Chen led the technical briefing, explaining humanity's unconventional approach to the crisis. The Nexarian scientists' initial skepticism gave way to cautious interest as they grasped the underlying principles. You propose to treat gravity not as a fundamental force, but as an emergent property of quantum interactions, the Nexarian chief scientist observed. This is not an approach we had considered. Our civilization's understanding of gravity control may have blinded us to alternative perspectives. We need to position our ships in a precise formation around the anomaly, Chen explained. Our quantum fields will create a resonance pattern that should disrupt the anomaly's quantum structure. But we'll need your vessels to stabilize the local space-time fabric while we work. The plan was simultaneously simple and terrifyingly complex. The 7 Earth ships would create a 3-dimensional geometric pattern around the anomaly, using their modified quantum drives to generate a cascading field effect. Nexarian ships would form a wider containment circle, using their advanced gravity control to prevent the anomaly's effects from spreading during the attempt. There's one other thing, Commander Rodriguez added grimly. Once we begin, we can't stop. The power buildup in our quantum drives will either succeed in collapsing the anomaly, or the backlash will destroy all our ships, Captain Patel finished. We understand the risks, but we didn't come this far to back down now. The next few hours were a carefully choreographed dance of preparation. Nexarian engineering teams helped fine-tune the human ship's quantum field generators, while Earth's scientists worked to integrate their control systems with Nexarian gravity technology. Finally, the moment of truth arrived. The 7 Earth ships moved into position around the anomaly, their formation creating a complex polyhedron in space. The massive Nexarian vessels took up their own positions, their gravity control systems already straining to maintain stability. All ships report ready, Zhao announced on the Prometheus's bridge. Quantum field generators at full capacity. Captain Patel looked at Dr. Chen, who nodded grimly. Begin the sequence. The quantum cascade started slowly at first. Each ship generated its own field, the 7 patterns gradually synchronizing into a single complex interference pattern. The space around them began to warp and twist as fundamental forces came into conflict. Quantum resonance at 30%, Rodriguez reported. Field stability holding. Wait. His console erupted in warnings. The anomaly is reacting. It's trying to pull us in. The view through the viewport became nightmarish. The anomaly's surface writhed like a living thing, tendrils of distorted space-time reaching out toward the Earth ships. The Nexarian vessel's gravity beams strained to hold it back, creating visible distortions in the fabric of space. Resonance at 50%, Rodriguez called out. Hull stress exceeding design limits. We're picking up microfractures in the quantum containment field. Dr. Chen's hands flew across her console, making rapid adjustments. The anomaly's quantum structure is more complex than we thought. We need to modify the resonance pattern. She looked up at Captain Patel. But if we change the pattern while the field is active? Do it, Patel ordered. All ships, prepare for pattern shift on Dr. Chen's mark. The next few minutes were the most intense of their lives. As the anomaly fought back against their attempt to unravel it, the Earth ships performed an impossible dance in space, shifting their formation while maintaining their quantum fields. The strain on both ships and crews was enormous. "Hull breach on Deck 4. Someone shouted. "Emergency containment fields holding." Gagarin reporting total power failure in their port quantum generator. "Challenger's structural integrity field is failing." But through it all, the quantum resonance pattern grew stronger. The anomaly's surface began to show signs of disruption, its perfect mathematical order breaking down under the assault of human ingenuity and Nexarian technology. "Resonance at 80%, Rodriguez announced. "Field coherence is something's happening." The anomaly's surface had begun to ripple in a new way. Where before it had been a uniform mass of distorted spacetime, now patterns were emerging, patterns that matched the quantum interference field generated by the Earth ships. "It's working," Dr. Chen breathed. "The anomaly's quantum structure is synchronizing with our field. Once it fully aligns," her eyes widened. "Everyone brace for impact. Final resonance in 3, 2, 1. The universe seemed to hold its breath. Then, with a flash of light that temporarily blinded everyone watching, the anomaly collapsed in on itself. The shockwave hit the fleet like a physical wall, sending ships tumbling through space. When the chaos cleared, where the anomaly had been, there was nothing but empty space and a scattering of quantum particles that were already beginning to decay. "Damage report," Patel called out, pulling herself back into her chair. "All ships reporting in," Zhao responded, his voice thick with relief. "Heavy damage across the fleet. But we're alive. We did it. We actually did it." Through the quantum comm, they could hear the Nexarians erupting in what could only be celebration. Their 12 billion lives were saved, their civilization preserved, by a species they had never met before today. Captain Patel allowed herself a small smile. "Send word to Earth. Tell them." She paused, looking at the impossible victory they had just achieved. "Tell them humanity just helped rewrite the laws of physics." 1 month after the destruction of the gravitational anomaly, the Prometheus's observation deck was crowded with both human and Nexarian representatives. The 3 suns of the Trilaxis system painted everything in shifting colors as Captain Patel stood beside High Chancellor Zexera of the Nexarian Collective, watching repair crews work on the damaged Earth ships. The Nexarians were fascinating beings. Their bodies seemed to shift between solid and energy states, a natural adaptation to life in a trinary star system. Their cities were marvels of engineering that made Earth's most advanced structures look primitive by comparison. Yet here they were, eager to learn from the species that had saved them. "Your approach to quantum mechanics is remarkable," Zexera said, their form shimmering with what the humans had learned to recognize as intense interest. "We had become so focused on controlling gravity directly that we never considered it might be an emergent property of something more fundamental." "Sometimes the simplest solutions are the hardest to see," Dr. Chen replied. She had spent the past weeks working with Nexarian scientists, combining their advanced technology with Earth's theoretical frameworks, especially when you're working with highly advanced tools. "Indeed." The High Chancellor's form shifted thoughtfully. "Which is why we would like to propose a permanent exchange of knowledge and culture between our peoples." The offer was unprecedented. The Nexarians were offering to share technology that could advance human civilization by centuries. But more importantly, they wanted to learn from humanity. Not just their scientific theories, but their way of thinking, their ability to approach problems from unexpected angles. "We've already begun adapting your quantum tunneling technique for our own ships," an Nexarian engineer added excitedly. "Combined with our gravity control technology, we could establish stable travel corridors throughout the galaxy. Together, we could map quantum space in ways neither of our species could manage alone." Commander Rodriguez, who had been quietly running diagnostics on the Prometheus's quantum drive, looked up. "And we could use your gravity control systems to stabilize our quantum fields. Make the journey safer, more predictable." The implications were staggering. 2 civilizations, one ancient and incredibly advanced, the other young and innovative, working together to reshape their understanding of the universe. But the exchange wouldn't be limited to technology. "There's something else," Zexera said, their form pulsing with what humans now recognized as emotion. "In our long history, we have encountered many civilizations, some more advanced than yours, some less. But none have ever done what you did, risk everything to save a species you had never met." Captain Patel thought about the crews of the 7 ships who had volunteered for what could have been a suicide mission. "It's what we do," she said simply. "When someone needs help, we help. The risk doesn't matter." This quality, the High Chancellor's form rippled. This willingness to face impossible odds, to think beyond established limits, to risk everything for others. "We believe it is worth more than any technology we could share." In the weeks that followed, both civilizations began an unprecedented exchange. Earth vessels, now equipped with Nexarian gravity control systems, established permanent quantum corridors between their worlds. Nexarian scientists began visiting Earth universities, while human researchers were welcomed into the great academic institutes of the Trilaxis system. But perhaps most significantly, the success of the mission changed how both species saw themselves and their place in the cosmos. The Nexarians learned that true advancement wasn't just about accumulating technology, but about maintaining the ability to see problems with fresh eyes. And humanity discovered that their greatest strength wasn't their technology, or even their determination. Dr. Sarah Chen stood in her old office at Mauna Kea, looking at the quantum array that had first detected the Nexarian signal. The equipment had been upgraded with Nexarian technology, but they had kept the original detection grid intact, a reminder of where it all began. "Dr. Chen," her assistant poked his head in, "the Nexarian quantum physics delegation is ready for your lecture on human approaches to theoretical modeling." She smiled, gathering her materials. On her desk sat a small crystal given to her by a Nexarian scientist. When viewed from certain angles, it showed an image of the 7 Earth ships in formation around the anomaly, frozen in the moment before their impossible victory. As she walked to the lecture hall, she passed a window that offered a view of the Hawaiian night sky. The stars looked different now, knowing what was out there. Humanity had taken its first real steps into a larger universe, not through conquest or technological superiority, but through the simple act of offering help when it was needed. And that, perhaps, was the greatest discovery of all.